And move to this one. The 5 men charged with the murder of soccer star Senzo Meyiwa are all back in the Pretoria High Court this morning. And Linda Mnisi joins us to tell us what to expect out of these proceedings today. Linda, good morning to you. I was commenting to Nobuhle that it's a long journey just in this first part of the bail application in the AKA matter. But it has taken a grinding sort of route to get to the point at which we are now. And this trial still hasn't hit full stride. There was a postponement on Monday, and it seemed ridiculous what this postponement was all about. Did the legal teams really come to the court to read out every chapter and verse of cell phone transactions, you know, small amounts of money for different things, you know, stretching into pages and pages, which certainly irritated the judge, it would seem.
Yes, and you'll remember that initially there was word that some of the records, the banking details, would be disputed. And what the defense said, they were waiting to see other records that the state would provide them with in order to be able to, of course, dispute what is contained in those documents. So it seemed when they came back to court, there was prior discussions that they will no longer dispute, which is the reason why the judge asked, if you're not disputing, then why are we not admitting this evidence? And all of that then curtails this trial. It cuts down all you know, the reading into the record, going line by line, because essentially what the state wants to prove with the bank records is that, number one, they were in Johannesburg at the time of Senzo Meyiwa's murder, and number two, their details are attached to the banking records, or their cell phone numbers, their IDs, and all of those stuff are attached to those banking records, which they also use in the evidence of Colonel Hose when he says this particular number belongs to this accused person. There's an SMS from a bank account which reflected on this particular phone, and it belongs to that particular person. So with the defense disputing the numbers, then the state brought those cell phone records in a bid to try and prove that these numbers belong to the accused. So all of this evidence is kind of interlinked, but obviously a discussion being had should have really you know, curtailed everything.
And as Mokhwetleng was saying the other day, the both teams had mutual agreement on the content of those records. There wasn't a need to go with the fine-tooth comb through each of those. Today is expected to be another moment that we have been waiting for in terms of Colonel Khosa's testimony. What is expected to unfold? Yeah,
well, Colonel Khosa is concerned. He's expected to, of course, continue with the cell phone evidence, particularly linking the numbers that are linked to the accused. Really at the center of Colonel Khosa's evidence, amongst others, is that accused number 5 had communication with all the accused, right? And that is what essentially is one of the biggest issues that are in contention here in terms of his evidence. You'll remember there's the issue around that number being saved under accused number 2's phone as Lungisani. And accused number 2 says, I know a Lungisani, but a Lungisani that I know and the Lungisani that I speak to is certainly not accused number 5. So Colonel Khosa will continue looking into that particular evidence. You'll remember also with the cell phone records linked to accused number 1 as well. So one other thing with the cell phone records that perhaps will be clarified by the state today is that number belonging to accused number 2 that is said to belong to somebody else that he says he knows in the Northwest. I think he said it's someone that he might have had a relationship with. The banking records there and that cell phone number still remains unclarified. So one of those issues that they will touch on today is that.
I mean, you just get a sense throughout this trial how the expectation of the public has to be tempered with the rigor that the court has to address and deal with the evidence, because every I has to be dotted, every T has to be crossed. So there isn't a problem later on, either by way of appeal or by those involved not getting a fair trial. I know that there's a lot of expectation on the ballistics part of this trial and what people like Mangena and others will say. Just give us a quick hit on that.
You'll remember that his testimony was pushed to May next week, the 20th, so he'll be cross-examined. He's the guy that testified about the firearm and the bullet projectile and everything surrounding their firearm that was linked to accused number 3 and was recovered when he was arrested in a separate matter. So the defense had asked for time to consult with their own expert to get a sense of what he says about what is contained there. But also important because you'll remember that the defense is arguing that the firearm that was used to kill Senzo Meyiwa was not a 9mm, as the state says. It was a revolver. So that is one of the big ones that will come next week.
Mnisi, thank you very much. We're back in court today and we'll take you there as well.